The controversy over the besieged Green Left independent MP Zali Steggall just won't go away. I've told you how she's been exposed over keeping secret a $100,000 donation from the Kinghorn Family Trust, a family fortune built largely on coal mining interests. Even though the amount was paid with one cheque, the donation was processed as 8 smaller parcels, keeping them under the threshold for revealing the identity of donors. Now, I showed you yesterday how Steggall was blaming the media, blaming the government and playing the victim. Yeah, it's everyone else's fault apparently, even though she sat on this information over the past year when we know it was brought to her attention by the Australian Electoral Commission. Yet she keeps making things worse. Today, Steggall has blamed the financial controller of her campaign, Damien Hodgkinson, claiming that nobody else knew about the details of this donation. Now, this buck passing actually creates more problems for Steggall and for the so-called Voices of Independence movement, because Hodgkinson is also a director of the Climate 200 group that funds many of these independents. So this demonstrates a very close link between the Warringah campaign and a large climate funding group. And Hodgkinson is also the accountant for other Voices candidates, such as Allegra Spender in Wentworth and Monique Ryan in Kooyong in Melbourne. Cosy, isn't it? This bells the cat about how these people pretend to be independents, but are actually behaving like just another Green Left political party. They run the same policies, they all run against Liberals, never Labor, they get funding from largely the same sources, and now we find out they share a financial controller. But they're all independent. Come on, what a fraud. The founder of Climate 200, Simon Holmes à Court, who inherited a fortune from his billionaire father, largely derived from oil, gas and other resources, well, he happened to be speaking at the National Press Club today. He seemed to speak on behalf of these Voices so-called independents that he funds. He praised them, he explained their positions, he advocated for them, but he also insisted he had no influence over them.
Our relationship with the candidates is with each, we make a donation. If they ask us, they're looking for advice on who they can talk to about X, Y, Z, we'll pass that on. But we don't have any agreement with the, we don't have any agreement at all with the candidates.
How very implausible. And given we could very likely have a hung parliament after the next election and the independents could decide who forms government, and they won't say which major party they would back, Holmes à Court also pretended to be a political eunuch.
So this is absolutely a decision for each of them individually. Nothing to do with me.
And just finally on the issues though, the 3 issues that you're campaigning on, are you more impressed with Anthony Albanese's view on those issues or Scott Morrison's?
I don't think we've seen the final policy platforms of the major parties, and as I said, my opinion here doesn't matter because I have no influence whatsoever the way that the independents who may be in the privileged position of balance of power, I have no influence over their vote on any issue, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
The puppet meister throwing around millions of dollars, speaking at the National Press Club to the nation about their campaigns, but he has no influence. Look, despite these games, we know these independents are effectively a political party. They are all running against Liberal MPs, and they would, of course, install a Labor Greens government. They exist to install a Labor Greens government. And also, if Damien Hodgkinson is the person to blame for the donation anomaly in Warringah, this breach of rules that kept a large donor secret for so long, doesn't that raise questions about donation transparency and practices at Climate 200, where he's a director, and in the campaign offices of the other candidates for which he remains a financial controller?
I have no problems at all with Damien staying in the role. He's an excellent controller.
What a sham this operation is. Campaigning on integrity, but brushing off its own breaches. Campaigning on transparency, but not being straight about which party they would install in government. And on top of it all, just like Grace Tame the other week, Holmes Court made a completely unsubstantiated and vicious slur against the government.
I know of 3 Climate 200 donors who have received phone calls from the Federal Treasurer when he's supposed to be helping get this country out of our COVID recession. 3 of them have been monstered by the Treasurer. I know people who have, his political opponents who have received their superiors at work have received phone calls and asked for them to be fired. Right? We live in an Australia where people are terrified of being identified as an opponent of the government. It's known as a vindictive and vengeful government.
Yeah, people are really scared of criticising the government in this country. What a load of rot. No names, no details, no evidence, just wild allegations. And they campaign on transparency and integrity. The voices of independents and their Climate 200 benefactors are clearly a coordinated political operation, and they clearly, absolutely clearly, do not practice what they preach.